Today I want to share with you my experience about living in South Korea last year, and more specifically about how it was to obtain the motorcycle driving license, how it is to drive on the roads in South Korea, where you can rent motorbikes, and where you can buy equipment and so on. So hopefully this will help those who plan to go there or who are already living there. So before starting, one big advice: if you plan to stay there for a while, it would be good to learn to read Hangul, the Korean alphabet. It's quite easy. There's just 35 to 40 characters, and this way you'll be able to read any sign and get around between cities, because not all the signs are translated to English. Alright, so a few facts about the motorcycle license itself. This is the circuit track where you practice and where you do the exam. The first thing that surprised me is that you don't need to have any gear. T-shirt and shorts will be just fine. You don't need a helmet. But anyways, you'll be driving only in first gear. Of course, on the roads you will need a helmet, but for the license itself you don't need any gear. And when you will be renting motorcycles in Korea, then usually it's included. You have a jacket, you have gloves, and you have a helmet. Okay, so to do the license in that country is very easy, it's very cheap, and it's also very quick. It took me only 3 days to do it. So to do that, you want to be in that first green column. The first thing you will need to do is to exchange your own country's car driving license into a Korean one. To do that, you go to the driving license office, and within 2 hours they will proceed to the exchange. In my case, I had a Canadian one that I exchanged for a Korean one, and it was very easy. Alien registration card. You get this card when you study there or when you work there, so this is not a problem. You'll need 3 pictures. For me, it was a problem because my Korean was quite bad, so the photograph didn't understand me when I was explaining that I want a photo for a bike license. I was doing the gestures. They ended up printing bikes on the photo, but in the end, they reprinted it without the bike, so it was fine. If you're in this first column, you will not need to do a medical checkup, and you will not have to do the written test, which is a good thing because at this point you probably don't speak Korean. You will need a certificate of driver's license. That's also easy. You just go to the closest police station of where you live, and they'll give you this paper that certifies that your license is still valid. You will do 3 hours of safety driving education. This is basically 3 hours of watching DVDs in a classroom about how to sit on a motorbike, how to turn, and so on. It's in Korean, but it's very straightforward. They're not so bad, and one of them have English subtitles. Then you will need to drive 10 hours. So it's possible to do it in 3 days. I did 4 hours on one day, 2 hours on another one, and again 4 hours on the third day. And then I did the exam, the test, just after the 4 hours of the third day. As for the cost, it's very cheap. The numbers here are in Korean won. So in USD, it's 335 US dollars, and in euro, 285 euros. So it's about 5 times cheaper than here in Germany or in France, for example. Now, a few words about the bikes, the track, and the rules for the test. The bikes are from Hyosung. It's a Korean brand. They're 250cc cruisers. They're a little bit on the heavy side, and they're not in the best mechanical condition. The brakes can be sticky, the clutch can be loose, the tires can be dead, or the lights can be not working. But this is okay because you're only driving on this small circuit. You're never taking them on the road. Speaking of the circuit, this is the layout. You start with, in the yellow section, with a big S-turn, which is not too difficult because it's wide. You move on to a straight line. It's the blue section. It's narrow, but if you take a little bit of speed, there's no problem. You make a U-turn, then you have to go around cones in a zigzag purple area. And the green area is composed of two 90 degrees turns, which is usually the section where people struggle the most. On the circuit you have rubber lines on the ground, and they're connected to speakers, so during the test if you touch one of the lines it will beep on the speakers. So basically how it works is that you will drive on the circuit for 10 hours to practice. There's no supervision, no one is really watching what you're doing, you just need to practice and practice and practice. And when the time comes, you have to do the exam, so you have to go around the circuit once without touching the lines. The rules are that you're allowed to touch one of the lines one time and you still pass, and you're also allowed to put your foot down once. So in the end it doesn't make the exam too difficult. Usually people have the most trouble in this 90 degrees turn because it's a bit narrow, and with those big cruisers it's not always easy to stay within the lines, as you can see here. So here is my complete lap for the exam. You start, you enter the large S turn. Okay, I hit the brakes there, I wasn't too good back then. Then you move on to the straight line. You perform a U-turn there, you're allowed to put your foot down, it doesn't count, it's out of the lines anyways. Then there's this easy section with the zigzag between the cones, no problem there. And the last section is with the two 90 degrees turns. And that's it, that's a pass. So once you pass the test, you go back to the driving school about 2 to 3 days later, and they will give you an updated version of your Korean driving license. This time around on the top left, as you can see, you will have not only the Class 2 car license, but you will also have the Class 2 motorcycle license. By the way, if you fail the exam, you can do it again on the next day or a few days later. You can do it as many times as you want, and the fee is about $15 to $20, so it's really not a problem to try again for the test. After Korea, I moved to Germany, and this was my objective. My objective was to exchange this license for a German one, a European driving license, and Germany exchanged it. Usually the condition is that you have to live in the country where you did your license at least 6 months. In my case, I stayed more than 6 months in Korea, so it was fine. And Germany exchanged the license for full Class A license, which is unrestricted. And I didn't have to do any tests, written or practical exams for the exchange. And the exchange was also free. But back to Korea. After I got the license, we went to Seoul with this French colleague Fabrice, who helped me a lot. We went to a place called Korea Scooter Tours, where they rent scooters and bikes. And we took those two bikes from, again, a Korean brand, which is Sim. They're in the 250 and 300cc class. And we drove around in Seoul, in Gangnam, where the store is located. Then we went to the mountains, and we drove around to a lake there. And it was a good opportunity to learn to do many things that were not seen in the driving license school. For example, counter steering, or starting in a hill when you're stopped, and so on. So he was very helpful, and that helped me to be a safer driver. What I recommend also, if you drive around on a bike in Korea, it is forbidden to drive bikes on the highway, so stay away from the highways, of course. And in terms of navigation, Google Maps doesn't work very well there. You can't enter addresses. So what I recommend is Kakao Navi. It's their own Korean Google Maps. They use Naver and Kakao Navi, but Kakao Navi is nice for motorbikes because you can choose an option to avoid highways. At least you choose an option that says I use a tractor or something like that, and then it will give you routes that avoid highways. So I will put the link for Korea Scooter Tours in the description because we had very good service there. After that, we went to another place, which is called MJ Bike, and we rented two bikes there, a Honda CBR 650F, which is a great bike, and we did also rent a smaller bike from a Korean brand, Daelim. It's a 125cc bike, not so good, I do not recommend this one, but the place itself, MJ Bike, very good place, very good service, they have great bikes in very good condition, mostly super sports. And we took those bikes to Name Island in the south, close to Tongyeong, and it's a great island to bike. In the mountains, the roads are very nice. You bike close to the beaches, and we met those Korean hardy bikers, really cool guys also. So great place to rent a bike and a great place to visit. As for gear, you can buy gear in the rental shops or in the shops where they sell bikes, but usually it's quite expensive, much more expensive than in Europe or America, and they don't have a lot of sizes. So the best option in Korea is to buy your equipment on Bike Mart online, or you can also go to their warehouse. So to summarize, if you spend more than 6 months in Korea and you want to get into biking, it's a great opportunity to obtain your bike driver license there because it's cheap and quick. It takes 3 days, $300, and make sure that your country will exchange this license for your own country's driving license when you come back. And while you're there, why not rent some bikes to visit the country? There's beautiful mountains, temples, and roads. And again, if you have any questions or if you want any help about this topic, don't hesitate.